How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Podward State. I'm your host, Sam Brungo, by myself today, but joined by our sports editor, Will Pegler, once again. Will, how's it going?
Sam, what's up, dude? Thanks again for having me. Another cool interview for you guys coming your way.
Yeah, definitely. On this episode, we have Penn State running back from 2011 to 2014. Kind of a Penn State legend, in my opinion. Holds record for the longest touchdown in Penn State history. Running back Bill Belton. You know, we chat to him a little bit. He had kind of an interesting college career. He played for Joe Paterno, Tom Bradley, Bill O'Brien, and James Franklin. So he's one of those few guys that really played through the whole gauntlet of coaches. You know, he's a four-star out of New Jersey, third-ranked player in the state. So, you know, it's just really cool conversation. He's out coaching now in New Jersey with Christian Hackenberg. So really cool conversation here. And so we're looking forward to you guys hearing that.
Belton all the way down the field. Belton, touchdown! What a way to answer! 92 yards for the Nittany Lions.
All right, joining us now is former Penn State running back Bill Belton. Bill, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Good. Everything is good. Thanks for having me.
So we're just going to start out. Will you tell us a little bit about the story of your recruiting process? You know, what it was like getting recruited by obviously Joe Paterno and why you chose Penn State.
So my recruiting process was different than others, I should say. You know, during the time I was getting recruited, I was originally committed to Pittsburgh. You know, Penn State kind of came in to the fold late for me. And, you know, during that time, Pittsburgh had some things that, you know, transpired with their staff and stuff like that. They wants to end up stepping down, and I reopened my recruitment. So I had a chance to have an in-home visit with Penn State at that time. And, you know, when they came in, you know, seeing that brand and, you know, your household is definitely something special. So, you know, I always looked at Penn State as a school I wanted to go to when I was younger. But, you know, actually having the opportunity to do that, you know, was like making a dream come true. You know, so that was pretty much the basis of my recruiting process.
I mean, obviously, because of your circumstances at Penn State, you ended up playing for a ton of different coaches over your career. Obviously, Joe, Tom Bradley for a few games, Bill O'Brien, and then James Franklin at the tail end. I'm just kind of curious, what was it like to play for, you know, so many different coaches? Were there specific lessons that you pulled from each of those guys? And I guess what was it like to be around so many different, you know, football minds in the game in such a short span of time?
To be honest with you, like, to play for Joe was honestly a blessing to, you know, deal with a guy like that. And anytime you get in a room with a guy that's a legend like that and who's historically looked at as, you know, one of the biggest figures in college football is definitely a blessing. But having a chance to play for those different guys over that period of time, it was a great opportunity to learn from, you know, different coaches, different schemes, different philosophies and stuff like that. And, you know, honestly, you know, I'm a coach now, so having that experience from, you know, different guys kind of helped mold me into the type of, you know, coach I wanted to be today.
You played in a running back room with Silas Redd, Zach Winak, and I believe Akil Lynch towards the end of it. So what was it like to balance kind of this running back competition and also with injuries thrown in throughout, and how did you deal with those?
What people don't remember is I came in as a wide receiver. So like my first year I spent playing wide receiver. And then, you know, I made the switch to running back. But being in that room, it was very, very competitive. I think, you know, naturally with Silas being there, I thought it was a great opportunity to learn from somebody that, you know, has, you know, a similar game to mine. And, you know, he played the game at a very high level. So I was able to learn as much as I can while he was there. And then with him leaving, it kind of opened up an opportunity for me to, you know, grow into the back that I wanted to be. You know, with, you know, all the injuries and stuff that were going on at the time, I think it opened the door for, you know, guys to get a chance to play and show their talent and stuff like that. And, I think, having, all those different types of backs in the room kind of brought a different element to the room. For example, you had a guy like Zach who was more of a downhill guy, in between tackles type of guy. You had a Kill who could do a little bit of both. And, my game wasn't necessary. I'm not a bruiser or anything like that. So I'm a guy that likes to play in space and get out and, play with more finesse and stuff like that. So, it was definitely an exciting time. I would say I'm a competitor at the end of the day. So having that type of, competitiveness in that room kind of brought the best out of all of us.
So you mentioned it, your first year there in 2011. Obviously, that's your first year there. You kind of develop from a wide receiver into a running back. But that's also when things started to unfold at Penn State with the scandal and that kind of stuff. What do you remember about, you being a younger guy at that time? What do you remember about maybe some older guys, some other coaches who helped step in and kind of like lead you guys through that situation? And did any of that kind of help you decide to stay and continue to build your career at Penn State even after all that unfolded?
During that time, I know obviously Tom, was definitely a big factor in that, because he was the guy at that point. But I think, somebody that, deserves a lot of credit is Larry Johnson. I think he did a very good job of, keeping guys together, along with, your upperclassmen and stuff like that, that, kept the train moving. I think, with those guys being leaders during that time, our freshman year, and kind of seeing those guys take the reins and making sure that this thing still goes the right way was definitely huge for, our team during that time.
Once the sanctions came out, we saw obviously players could transfer to anywhere without having the penalty of having to sit out a year. We lost scholarships, and, in the running back room, Silas Redd decided to go to USC. What was kind of the, now we have this transfer portal, but what was kind of like the transfer pool and the re-recruiting of players like during that time? And, what were some options that you had, especially as someone that hit towards the end of your freshman year, kind of broke out in the bowl? What was that like, and what ultimately led you to stay at Penn State rather than to choose another school?
During that time, there were a lot of schools calling my high school head coach, Coach McBride. Everyone from across the country was calling. I mean, coming out of high school, I was highly sought after. So a lot of those guys returned and, made phone calls to see what my availability was and to see if, I was open to leaving and stuff like that. I had West Virginia call, I had Arizona State call, I had guys like Oregon call, you name it. Guys who, kind of play with skill guys in space and stuff like that. They were definitely all checking them, to see if I was available and stuff like that. To be honest with you, what led me to staying was, one, the move to running back. During that time, I wasn't sure about what anyone else was going to do, but the turning point for me is when Silas left. It's pretty much a deal where going into spring ball or during spring ball, I earned my way to being the number 2 guy behind Silas. So, like I said before, I had an opportunity to learn a lot of things from him. But when he stepped off to go to USC, I'm like, okay, I mean, this is what you came here for. You came here to play on a big stage. And, once he did that, I'm like, look, I'm pretty much the man now. So, that's what led me to, staying at Penn State.
So after you decide to stay, obviously Bill OBrien comes in. We talked a little bit about it with Jordan Hill, like how you guys, like his reputation almost like preceded him a little bit. Like you saw a lot of what you guys saw was him, like, coaching Tom Brady, yelling at Tom Brady at times. So what do you remember about, your experience with Bill OBrien, and what was that like to be with, a guy who's really ended up a Penn State legend after those 2 years? What was that like to play for him in 2 of your biggest years at Penn State?
Yeah, I love, me personally, I love Bill. Like you said, you see, him coaching Tom Brady, and then you have that one incident where you see them going back and forth on the sideline, which is, that happens in the heat of the battle. But, ultimately, I think that he was able to get a lot out of me, and, coach me in a way that forced me to be the best player that I could be. So I have nothing but positive things to say about him. I know he was, able to, he was able to get a lot out of me. I will say that.
I grew up in State College, and I grew up a enormous Penn State fan, and that 11-12 time with a big dark cloud kind of surrounding State College. It was a tough time for everyone here, but for me at least growing up, the people that stayed were known as like these heroes, I remember, and it was just like keeping the team alive. And yeah, I mean, what was it like for you to stay and be recognized as this persistent player that just stayed through this dark time? And what do you think that the legacy should be for someone like you that stayed, and what did it mean to you to really be part of that team?
Being a part of that team is definitely huge. Was a huge deal. I think, for myself, the biggest thing was, having a legacy and leaving something that, not only I, but this, this team could be remembered as. And, for me, I was big on, staying loyal to the guys that were loyal to me. And, yeah, we were victims of a situation that, that had, I don't want to sit here and say it didn't have anything to do with us, but it involved, it happened during a time where we was not there. So it's one of those things where, this place took a chance on me, gave me a chance to fulfill my dream. And the last thing I want to do is just up and leave. So I'm a firm believer in, making things right. If I can help, right the ship whenever I can, I'm definitely going to do that. So that's how I was kind of looking at it.
Myself, kind of growing up a Penn State fan, I know I definitely have a favorite moment of your career, but I was just wondering if you have, looking back at your career, do you have, one moment that stands out to you, or a few moments that are kind of your favorite from your days at Penn State?
I would say I have three. Everybody knows one of them. Obviously, the Michigan game is one of them. But the run versus Indiana was a big moment for me. And then the game versus Illinois, where I ran for 200. That, to do that is not easy at that level. And then, for me, that was the first time my high school head coach came to see me play. And I had one of the biggest games of my career that day. So those are probably the three moments that, will forever be with me.
Like we mentioned earlier, the tail end of your career, you had a chance to play with under James Franklin, who's currently still the head coach at Penn State. What was it like, going from this locker room with Bill O'Brien, who was sort of like came from professional football and sort of brought that mentality to him, to Penn State, to going to James Franklin, who was a college coach through and through, and, brought that mentality and what was it, shifting from those two?
Anytime you have a coaching change, you definitely experience some type of culture change. Just that's a natural thing to go to, whether it's, you're in a job or, whatever the case may be, you're going to experience some type of culture shift when you're dealing with a new boss. So, dealing with James, I thought, I knew James prior to, Coach Franklin, I should say, prior to coming to Penn State. He recruited me when he was at Maryland. So seeing him come in was like, man, this is a familiar face to me. I had a pretty good relationship with him during my recruiting process. And, playing for him was definitely different. I wouldn't say different in a bad way, but it was different in, a way as, he carried the team in a different way. Obviously, because he came from a different background than Bill, but he was more, outgoing, more fun, youthful, and stuff like that, and in that regard. So, I enjoy playing for them both. I enjoy playing for Coach Franklin as well.
So one thing about that era that you played in, the culture there was so strong and close and tight knit. You were part of a almost a little fraternity at Penn State, the Supa Six. Can you explain that to our listeners a little bit that don't know what that is, and talk a little bit about what that means to you?
Yeah, so that started pretty much our freshman year. I mean, it was just a group. It started off as a group of guys just hanging together. We were together since day one. Me, Kyle Carter, Deion Barnes, Donovan Smith, Allen Robinson, and Adrian Amos. So we did everything together. We ate together, played basketball together, did everything together. And throughout our career, it's always stayed that way. When we were going out together. Nothing, we did everything together. And it was, definitely a brotherhood. I can honestly say to this day, we're still as close as we were in college. We get together, we try to get together at least once a year, with the way that life has been going, and circumstances and stuff like that. We haven't been able to get together yet this year just due to COVID and stuff like that. But, guys have been getting married and, baby showers and all of that stuff. So, we had a chance to get around each other in years past. So we plan on getting together soon. But, we're still a bunch of guys that, still talk daily and that are a close-knit group.
What does it mean for you to see those guys really succeed at the next level? Donovan just won a Super Bowl. Allen is playing fantastic out of his mind. Adrian as well. Deion is coaching, and you're coaching. What does that mean to you to see these guys succeed at the next level now that you're done playing?
Right. So for me, I couldn't be more proud and happy for them. During my time in school, I'm like, man, these guys are really, really good. So at that time, you could see the writing on the wall. You knew that, these guys were going to be special. With Don winning the Super Bowl, he was the first one out of the group to get a ring. So I couldn't have been, more proud and happy for him. The moment Tom Brady went there, I'm like, oh, he's about to get a ring. This is ring season. So, I'm happy for him. Allen's playing out of his mind. I don't want to say anything that jam him up with what he has going on and stuff like that, but he's playing out of his mind. Hopefully one day I'm able to see him get a ring next. Adrian's been doing his thing in Green Bay. He got very, very close to getting to the Super Bowl and stuff like that, and it was cool to see him and Donovan play each other in the playoffs. So I was definitely torn watching that game. So those guys are doing a great thing in the league. And, as far as Deion, Deion's going to be a very, very good coach. He's good at, relating to the young guys. He's good at, coaching, technique, relating to the players and stuff like that. So he has a very, very bright future in front of him. I'm excited to see where, this, goes for him. And see what the future holds for him. And, Kyle's been, doing training stuff in Maryland, and his business is really starting to pick up. So, Kyle's going to be a guy that we're all going to be talking about years from now, whether it's with combine training, with, training high school athletes, college athletes, or even pro athletes. So, words can't say, or, whatever, how proud of them all I am.
So kind of staying on track here, after you finish up your time at Penn State, you spent a little bit of time with the New York Jets. I believe it was rookie minicamp. Even though it wasn't necessarily, a full season, what was that, like getting to able to get that shot, experience sometime at the NFL? How was that kind of coming right out of Penn State and jumping into an NFL locker room?
I thought it was great. During my cup of coffee in the league, putting on a helmet was, definitely something I could take away from it. I could tell my kids one day, look, I had a cup of coffee here. I was able to put on a helmet, go out and practice for a few days, and then go home. So, being there, it made me realize that, as much as people make it seem like it's a big jump, It's really not. You have your your special players, and then you have everyone else. You have guys that are, physically gifted, that are, big and fast, and then you have guys that are, that are just in the right place at the right time, that fall a victim to the right situation. But to be honest with you, I was definitely more than excited to get the opportunity. And, I'm thankful for them giving me the opportunity and falling in that situation to even have the chance to go prove myself to an organization. But that's something I can take away and, share with my family and future kids one day.
So just kind of curious, either with the Jets at camp or at Penn State overall, do you have a like best defensive player you've ever played against? Like overall, do you have one in mind?
I always say Ryan Shazier. That dude was like, that's something I've never seen before. It was just like this guy is like so big, he's so fast, like you can't get away from him. And he, like, when he hits you, he's gonna hit you like as hard as he can every time. So I would say him, like, yeah, that's Bosa was pretty good too. But I don't deal with him on a down and down thing. That's more of, a lineman deal and stuff like that. But Ryan Shazier, that guy was different, man. It sucks that his career went that way. That's a guy that, could have been playing the game for a very, very long time. But God had, other plans for him. So, but that was my favorite player to play against. I know that he was going to get the best of me, every game and stuff like that. I know that was a game that I had to be on my P's and Q's or I was going to get my head knocked off. So I would definitely say him.
When people, I would say, think of you, they think of that Michigan game where you kind of had the walk-off touchdown for OT. Can you just tell us a little bit about that final drive and leading into overtime and what was going through your head? Obviously playing in that whiteout game.
Yeah. So, going into that drive, for us as an offense, I never had no doubt in my mind. That year we used to practice 2 minute all the time during practice. So, it felt routine. Like, all right, our backs are against the wall. We got this amount of time. We got to go down and score. That drive, the first catch that Allen had, I tell people all the time, like the last catch was great, but the first catch, that was probably the best catch I've seen. Like the ball was like damn near by the players out of bounds, and he ended up, putting his foot down and getting his body out there and getting his hands out there to catch the ball. And then, after that, Brandon Felder had a big grab, and then you have the catch, and then we were able to punch it in. So during that drive, I'm like, man, like, we're good. I know we're going to go down there. And, Hack made plays for us down the stretch.
For you, like, obviously coaching now, when was that something in the back of your mind, like, as you were a football player, like, oh, maybe one day I'll parlay this into coaching? Or did it kind of just, did the opportunity jump out to you one day and you decided to do it? And if so, when?
I never thought about coaching. I always thought about playing. I thought, I was going to be somebody that was fortunate enough to, have a long, football career. And, things didn't go that way. So, during my time where I got done, like, playing football after that Jets minicamp, I was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. I had a few jobs. I'm like, you know what, something's missing. Going to work every day and not really being around the game doesn't feel right. And then, I was blessed with an opportunity to start coaching. And then once I got that opportunity, I'm like, man, this feels great. And then prior to coaching, I started a training business as well. So once I started training guys in the area and then seeing them go perform, every week, and, a lot of stuff that I'm telling them and teaching them is working, in the high school game, I'm like, man, I could be really good at this. So, that's what kind of led me into coaching.
You were coaching, I believe, at your alma mater. Is that correct?
Right.
So how did you get that opportunity, and what's it like to represent and kind of come full circle in that in your hometown?
So the opportunity came about, I want to say last spring. So prior to last spring, I was at our rival school across the street. I was a quarterback coach there. They were really, really good. And they brought me in and gave me the opportunity to coach. So, the AD, the head coach at my alma mater, and now was a guy that coached me in high school. And, they were always asking me like, yo, when you gonna come back? This is where you're from. Like, we could really use you over here. And, that whole deal. And, at that time, I'm like, there's still some more stuff I want to see. And then, when the time's right, I'll definitely come back. And then, I was able to get back last spring. And, going into that year, I always thought we had a chance to be very, very good. So they brought me in as the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach there. And, going into this COVID year, we had a lot of talent. And things just came together for us. We ended up going 5-1 on a short season. So the way that New Jersey football worked last year was we had a short season, and after the short season, they had pods. So everybody would be in a pod. So the way that it broke down was the top 4 teams in South Jersey would be in a playoff pod, and then everybody else would be in a pod where they play additional games. So we ended up getting into the playoff pod last year, and then we ended up losing the first round to the team that won technically the South Jersey championship. But, it was definitely a great experience for those guys. We get a lot of those guys back. So I'm definitely looking forward to this year.
So you already mentioned him a little bit, but obviously you're going to be coaching with Hack now, Christian Hackenberg on the offensive side of the ball. Did you kind of like recruit him? Were you guys still close after your time at Penn State, and you kind of asked him to get involved? How did that play out?
Yeah, so previous to like Hackenberg coming on board, he actually came out to train some of the QBs I had in the area. I have some top, elite QBs in the area. And somebody pretty much told me that Hack was, living in New Jersey. So obviously I reached out to him and got him to come out and train the guys. Once he trained the guys, I saw what he was doing. I'm like, man, he's really, really good at this. So in the back of my mind, this happened in the springtime. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, if I can get a chance to coach with him, I'm definitely going to do that. So I didn't bring it up. Later that year, he came out to a game. This was this past year, I should say. He came out to a game, and he was there watching. He got a chance to see the team, and then after the game, I introduced him to the AD, the head coach, and everyone else. So at that point in my mind, as you can see, I'm definitely recruiting them at this point. I'm introducing them to everybody in this, that, and third. So, after the year, we talked throughout the year and stuff like that. And after the year, we had some things that we wanted to do, training wise, as far as like quarterbacks and, getting together and working together on some things. So we were able to sit down and talk about that. And, that's when I just pretty much just like popped the question. I'm like, look, man, like, what's your schedule like? I would love to have you if we can. The head coach is already on board with it. So if we can get you here, it'll be great. It'll be a great opportunity for you, for myself, for the team, for the program. So that's pretty much how it happened.
What's it like for those players, to have these two coaches? I played football in high school too, and none of my coaches played, Division I college football or in the NFL. So I wonder what it's like for those players to have, someone that has Penn State records, someone that has had their time in the NFL, and what lessons you guys kind of give to them and advice to keep them open with those goals.
So we have another one too. He's not a Penn State guy. He went to Southern Cal. He played linebacker at Southern Cal, and went to the league and played in the league. He's around my age. He's about 28. His name is Anthony Serro. So he also played in Canada too. But when you have guys like that in your program that can give back, it brings a different level of expertise, right? So you get guys that are young enough to still show you, what's going on and how to do certain things. And then from a knowledge point of view, you got guys that, been to the highest level of football and that learn the game from, the greatest minds in football. Because, at that point, you're learning, from the guys that do it professionally. So once you get guys like that in the room, the kids are definitely going to benefit from it. The first time, guys met, Hackenberg, you could see how excited they were. And, I think they're extremely grateful to, have a guy like that. I know for me, when I was in high school, I had really, really good coaches, but I didn't have, a guy that played in the NFL for a couple of years and a guy who was at a Division I school and was this, this big, high profile guy. So it's definitely an exciting time for those kids and an exciting time to be at Winslow.
So kind of going back to a Penn State question, Sam kind of mentioned it. You and a lot of other guys are kind of credited with, helping keep the program alive, staying there and continuing to play through those tough times. Since a lot of guys like you kind of pass through the program, things, continue to grow and you're rightly credited with a lot of that. How good is it to see kind of now from the outside or from an alum's perspective, the program kind of continue to grow over the past few years, specifically at your position with Saquon and Miles? What's it been like to watch those guys and watch the program as a whole?
To be honest, like it's a great feeling knowing that, you were one of the glue guys to keep things together. I tell guys all the time, I would much rather have been on that number 2 team in the country and play with those guys and, experience all the type of big wins and bowls that they went to. But, being a glue guy is huge. But, seeing Miles and Saquon play in college, I'm like, man, these guys are really, really good. And then, seeing them in the league, it's like nothing's changed. So like those guys are special talents. And, whoever brought them both to Penn State definitely deserve, a lot of credit. Those guys are, like I said, those guys are special and they'll have, a very long career in the league. But, I'm happy with, how Penn State has grown from the time that we were there. So I'm definitely excited to see what they do this year.
Awesome. Well, Bill, thank you so much for coming on, chatting with us a little bit about your time at Penn State and what you got going on now at Winslow. So we wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
There's our conversation with running back Bill Belton from Penn State. Really cool conversation. I really had a good time talking to him. Will, what do you think?
It was awesome, dude. I had a ton of fun talking to him. I mean, Bill Belton was a beast. Like growing up, I know you were a Penn State fan. I was a Penn State fan. He was the man. You talked about it in the intro and we talked about it a little bit. He had like that 90-yard touchdown run against Indiana. Obviously, he had the game winner against Michigan. So a really cool Penn State career and kind of a different perspective. It was fun though. He was super willing to talk with us and really dive deep into every part of his football career. So it was great.
Will, once again, thanks for coming on, chatting with us. It was a good time, man. Thanks
again for having me, man. Another really, really cool conversation. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Until next time with Pegs, we'll see you guys next week. This is another episode of Podward State. My name is Sam Brungo. You guys have a good one. Take it easy. Stay safe.